Hello, traveler. I was hoping you'd find your way back to our circle tonight. The desert is a vast, shifting ocean of shadow once the sun departs. But here, between these stones, we have carved out a little sanctuary of light. Go ahead, make yourself truly comfortable. If you're under a blanket, pull it a little closer. If you're lying down, feel the way the surface beneath you supports your weight completely. You don't need to hold yourself up anymore. You don't need to be ready for anything. The world beyond this fire is thousands of miles and thousands of years away. Take a long, slow breath in. Feel the cool night air fill your lungs. And as you let it out, imagine you are releasing the day. All the voices, the screens, the list of things to do, let them turn into smoke and drift up toward the stars. Tonight, we are traveling to a land that understood the beauty of the long view. We are going to ancient Egypt. Not the Egypt of dusty museums or fast-paced movies, but the living, breathing Egypt. The place where the air smells of blooming lotus and baked mud. The place where the horizon is dominated by mountains of white limestone that shine like fallen stars. I have many stories for you. Fragments of lives lived along the banks of the Nile. We will sit with the farmers in the fields, watch the priests in the incense-filled temples, and walk the silent corridors of the great pyramids. There is no hurry. In this circle, time moves differently. If you find your mind wandering, let it wander. If you find your eyelids growing heavy, let them close. The story will stay here with you, a gentle current carrying you towards sleep. Let us lean in closer to the embers. Let us begin our journey at the very beginning, with the water. Imagine you are standing on a high dune, looking down into a valley. Everything around you is red, a deep, burning, silent red of the high desert. But below you, there is a miracle. A thick, vibrant, pulsing vein of green. This is the Nile. The Egyptians called it Itaru, simply the river. But the spirit of the river they called Happy. Happy was depicted not as a distant, terrifying god, but as a plump, generous figure with skin the color of the water. He was the bringer of the inundation. Think of the rhythm of your own heart. For the Egyptians, the river was that heart. Every year, when the dog star Sirius appeared in the morning sky, they knew the change was coming. Deep in the mountains of Ethiopia, the heavy rains would fall, and the snows would melt. That water would journey thousands of miles, gathering the rich, black volcanic minerals of the earth, bringing them down to the thirsty sands of Egypt. By midsummer, the river would begin to groan. It would turn a deep, dark red, then a murky green. And then it would rise. It didn't happen in a sudden, violent wave. It was a slow, majestic swelling. The water would creep over the banks. It would fill the canals that the farmers had spent months digging. It would turn the dry, cracked earth into a vast, shallow mirror, reflecting the blue Egyptian sky. Imagine the sound of that water. A soft, constant gurgling as it finds its way into the thirsty pores of the ground. The people didn't fear this flood. They celebrated it. They played harps and flutes. They sang songs to Happy, thanking him for bringing the fatness of the earth. They knew that when the water receded, it would leave behind a layer of black gold, the silt. This was Kemet, the Black Land. Everything in their world was built on this pulse. Their calendar had 3 seasons: Ake, the inundation; Parate, the emergence of the land; and Shimu, the harvest. It was a life of predictable, comforting cycles. As you settle deeper into your rest, try to feel that pulse. The slow, inevitable rise and fall of the river. It is the same rhythm as your breath. Rising and falling. Rising and falling. The river is the earth's breath. And tonight, we breathe with it. While the river gave them life on earth, the sun gave them the story of their souls. Let's look into the fire for a moment. See how the orange light dances. The Egyptians believed that in the beginning, there was nothing but a vast, silent, dark ocean called none. There was no wind, no sound, just a dark, infinite depth of water. And then, out of the darkness, a mound of earth rose up, the first piece of solid ground. They called it the Bended Stone. On top of this mound, a bird, a phoenix-like creature called the Bennu bird, landed and let out a cry. That sound was the first sound in the universe. It shattered the silence and set time in motion. This story explains why the Egyptians loved the shape of the pyramid. The pyramid is a stone version of that first mound of earth. Every time a new temple was built, or a new pyramid was raised, they were recreating the beginning of the world. They believed that every morning, the sun god Ra was born again. He would climb into his day boat, the man jet, and sail across the belly of the sky goddess Nut, who arched over the earth like a canopy of stars. Imagine that journey. Ra is the king of the sky, radiant and warm. He watches over the farmers in the fields and the fishermen on the river. But as the sun begins to dip, and the shadows grow long across the desert, Ra's boat begins to change. It becomes the night boat, the Mesektet. As the sun sets, Ra enters the Duat, the underworld. This was the most dangerous part of the cycle. In the darkness, the great serpent Apep would try to swallow the sun and return the world to the silent, dark waters of the beginning. But Ra was never alone. He was guarded by gods and spirits, and even the souls of the dead who had passed their tests. Together, they would fight off the darkness. Every night, the battle was fought, and every morning, when the first sliver of gold appeared on the eastern horizon, the Egyptians breathed a sigh of relief. The world had been saved. Order had defeated chaos. Think of your own sleep in this way. It is a journey through the quiet dark, a time for your spirit to rest and renew itself. And just like Ra, you will find the light waiting for you when the cycle turns. But for now, the boat is steady. The water is calm. You are safe in the night. Now, let's talk about those great mountains of stone, the pyramids of Giza. To understand them, we have to look up. Above our campfire, the stars are brilliant. To the Egyptians, these weren't just dots of light. They were the imperishable ones, the spirits of the ancestors who had become stars so they could never die. When King Khufu decided to build his great pyramid, he wasn't just building a tomb. He was building a machine to reach the sky. Imagine the Giza plateau 4,500 years ago. It's a hive of quiet, organized activity. There are no slaves being whipped. That's a story from much later. These are farmers and craftsmen, working during the season of the inundation when they can't work their fields. They are proud. They are building a home for a god. The stones were brought from quarries across the river. Can you hear the sound of the wooden sledges sliding over wet sand? The Egyptians discovered that if you pour a little water in front of a heavy sledge, the friction drops, and the stone glides as if it's on ice. The precision is what truly settles the mind. The base of the Great Pyramid is so level that across its 13-acre span, the corner-to-corner difference is less than the thickness of your thumb. How did they do it? They used the stars. A priest would stand on the plateau at night. He would hold a tool called a merkit, a plumb line made of a palm branch with a slit in it. By lining up two stars that rotated around the North Pole, he could find the exact line of true north. The pyramid is aligned to the cardinal directions so perfectly that even modern satellites have trouble finding an error. Imagine standing inside the king's chamber, right in the heart of that mountain of stone. It is the quietest place on earth. The walls are made of massive blocks of red granite, brought hundreds of miles from the south. Above you, there are 5 relieving chambers designed to take the weight of the millions of tons of stone above so the room doesn't collapse. There are 2 narrow shafts that point out from the chamber. One points directly toward the North Star. The other points toward the belt of Orion. The Egyptians believed that when the king died, his soul would travel up those shafts like a beam of light. He would shoot out into the night sky and join the imperishable ones. As you lie here, feel the weight of the world around you, not as a burden, but as a solid, ancient foundation. Like the stones of the pyramid, you are grounded. You are supported. You are part of a structure that has lasted for millennia. The wind blows across the limestone. The sand shifts against the base. But the pyramid does not move. And tonight neither do you. The fire is burning steady now. The center of the logs has turned into that deep, glowing orange that looks like the heart of a mountain. It's the kind of light that invites secrets. Now that we've seen the great stones of the pyramids, let's move away from the high desert plateau. Let's walk down the slope, feeling the sand get cooler and finer between our toes, until we reach the edge of the city. We are entering the world of the living, the world of the temple and the home. Before us stands a pylon, 2 massive stone towers that form the gateway to the temple. This is the mansion of the god. To the Egyptians, a temple wasn't a place where you went to sit in a pew and listen to a sermon. It was a literal house. Imagine you are standing at the entrance of the Temple of Karnak at twilight. The walls are 50 feet high, covered from top to bottom in carvings of kings and gods. These carvings aren't just art, they are alive. They were once painted in brilliant blues, greens, and reds. In the flickering torchlight, the figures seem to breathe. As we walk through the gateway, we enter the hypostyle hall. Close your eyes and imagine a forest. But instead of trees, there are 134 massive stone columns. They are so wide that it would take 6 grown men with their arms outstretched to encircle just one of them. The capitals at the top are shaped like open papyrus flowers. The ceiling above is painted a deep, dark indigo, covered in 5-pointed golden stars. It feels as though you are walking through a stone marsh at the very beginning of time. Deep in the back of the temple, past the sun-drenched courtyards and the forest of pillars, lies the sanctuary. It is a small, dark, silent room. Inside, in a shrine made of silver or gold, sits the statue of the god. Every morning, at the moment the sun hits the temple roof, the high priest breaks the clay seal on the sanctuary doors. He doesn't pray loudly. He whispers. He washes the statue with scented water. He dresses it in fresh linen. He offers it honey, roasted goose, and bread. Why? Because the Egyptians believed that the gods needed us just as much as we needed them. It was a partnership. If the priest tended the god would ensure the sun rose and the Nile flowed. It was a world of mutual care. As you rest tonight, imagine that same sense of care surrounding you. You are in your own sanctuary. The doors are closed to the noise of the outside world. The air is still. You are tended to by the silence. In the shadows of the temple courtyard, a group of young men sits on the ground. They are cross-legged, their backs straight, their eyes focused on the wooden pallets in their laps. These are the scribes in training. In Egypt, to know how to write was to hold the power of creation. They called their writing Metanetcher, the words of the gods. We call them hieroglyphs. Imagine the tools of their trade. A scribe carries a long wooden case. Inside are reeds sharpened to a fine point. At the end of the case are 2 circular wells of ink, one black, made from soot, and one red, made from ochre. The black ink was for the body of the text. The red ink was for important things, the start of a new chapter, the names of demons, or the dates of festivals. Hieroglyphs are beautiful because they are a mirror of the world. If you wanted to write the word to hear, you drew an ear of an ox. If you wanted to write to go, you drew a pair of walking legs. If you wanted to write sun, you drew a perfect circle with a dot in the center. But there was a secret magic to it. The Egyptians believed that if you drew something, it had the potential to become real. This is why, in some tombs, the hieroglyphs of dangerous animals like scorpions or lions are drawn with a little knife through their backs, to pin them to the wall so they couldn't jump off and hurt the soul of the deceased. Think about the weight of your own name. To an Egyptian, your name was one of the 5 essential parts of your soul. As long as your name was written down or spoken aloud, you would live forever in the beautiful West. Take a moment to write your worries away. Imagine you have a scribe's brush. See yourself drawing a symbol for peace or rest in the air. See the black ink settling into the fibers of the papyrus. It is fixed. It is done. The word for rest is now the reality of your body. Let's leave the grand stone walls of the temple and walk toward the river green. This is where the people lived. Not in stone palaces. Even the kings lived in houses of mud brick, but in homes designed to stay cool in the desert heat. Imagine a small villa near a canal. The walls are thick and painted white to reflect the sun. On the roof, there are wind catchers, V-shaped structures that funnel the northern breeze down into the living rooms, acting as an ancient form of air conditioning. In the center of the courtyard, there is a rectangular pool filled with clear water. Large, flat lily pads float on the surface, and silver fish dart between the stems. Around the pool, there are sycamore fig trees and date palms, casting long, feathered shadows over the ground. A woman is standing in the garden. She is wearing a dress of fine, pleated white linen. It's so light it's almost translucent, perfect for the heat. She is wearing a touch of green malachite eyeshadow to protect her eyes from the sun's glare. She is picking grapes from a wooden trellis. The air smells of damp earth, roasting garlic, and the sweet, resinous scent of sycamore. This was the good life for an Egyptian. Not gold or conquest, but a cool garden, a family, and a steady supply of beer and bread. They loved life so much that their version of heaven was simply this garden, but without the weeds, and with a river that never failed to rise. They were a people who appreciated the small things. They kept cats as pets, not just for catching mice, but because they admired the cat's grace and mystery. They played board games like Senate by the light of oil lamps, laughing as they moved their carved ivory pieces across the squares. Can you feel the coolness of that garden? The way the sun feels warm on your skin but the breeze feels cold? There is no rush here. The sun will set, the lamps will be lit, and the family will sleep on the roof, under the stars, where the air is freshest. You are there with them now. The sounds of the village are fading. The distant lowing of cattle, the splash of a fish in the pool, it's all becoming a soft, rhythmic lullaby. Let's move into the kitchen of this house. The Egyptians were the world's first great chemists. In fact, the word chemistry comes from chem, the ancient name for Egypt. They were masters of the transformation of things. Think of the bread. They had over 40 different types of loaves. Some were shaped like animals for children. Some were sweetened with dates and honey for festivals. Imagine the smell of the dough rising in the sun, fueled by wild yeast from the Nile air. And then there was the beer. It wasn't the thin, bubbly liquid we know today. It was thick and cloudy, more like a liquid bread. It was full of B vitamins and nutrients. Everyone drank it, from the smallest child to the pharaoh himself. It was a gift from the goddess Hathor, the lady of drunkenness and joy. But their alchemy went further. In the corner of the room, there are small jars of oils and resins. The Egyptians were obsessed with cleanliness. They bathed multiple times a day. They invented the first breath mints, made of frankincense, cinnamon, and melon seeds mixed with honey. They made perfumes so powerful that when archaeologists opened jars in Tutankhamun's tomb 3,000 years later, the scent of valerian and frankincense still lingered in the air. Imagine that. A scent that can outlast empires. As you breathe in tonight, imagine you are breathing in those ancient oils. Cedarwood to ground you, blue lotus to dream, myrrh to protect you. The work of the day is done. The jars are sealed. The bread is cooling. The house is settling into the quiet of the night. The fire has moved into its most beautiful stage now. The flickering yellow flames have vanished, replaced by a steady, pulsing crimson glow. It is a deep heat, a quiet heat. It is the color of the sunset over the Red Sea. As the world around us grows darker, we must speak of the journey that every Egyptian prepared for. We must speak of the transition from the physical world into the eternal one. For them, death was not a wall, it was a golden door. When a person breathed their last breath in the land of the Nile, the work of the embalmers began. This was a sacred science, performed in a place called the Wabit, the pure place. Imagine a room filled with the scent of cedar oil, myrrh, and salty natron. The embalmers were more than just technicians. They were priests, often wearing the mask of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the desert. The goal was to cheat time. They believed the soul, the Ka, needed a physical home to return to every night to gather energy. If the body vanished, the soul would wander lost forever. The process was long and patient, lasting 70 days, the same amount of time the star Sirius disappears from the sky each year. First, the internal organs were removed and placed into 4 canopic jars. Each jar had a lid shaped like one of the 4 sons of Horus: a human, a baboon, a jackal, and a falcon. They would guard the lungs, the stomach, the liver, and the intestines. But the heart was always left inside the body. They believed the heart was the seat of intelligence and memory, the record keeper of every kind word and every selfish thought. To remove it was to remove the person's very identity. Once the body was dried and anointed with precious resins that turned the skin the color of dark amber, the wrapping began. Imagine hundreds of yards of the finest linen, soaked in gum, being wound around the limbs. Between the layers, the priests would tuck small amulets, golden scarabs, jed pillars for strength, and the heart scarab, which carried a spell asking the heart not to rise up as a witness against the person during judgment. Finally, a mask was placed over the face. For a king, it was solid gold. For a farmer, it was painted linen. But in the twilight of the tomb, both shone with the same promise, that the face would remain beautiful and recognizable for all eternity. As you settle into your blankets, feel that same sense of being wrapped in safety, a cocoon of warmth and silence. You are preserved here, away from the chaos of the world. Now, imagine the spirit has left the tomb. It travels through dark, winding tunnels, past guardian demons and gates that require secret names to pass. Finally, it emerges into a hall of impossible light, the Hall of Two Truths. At the end of the hall sits Osiris, the Lord of Silence, on a throne of lapis lazuli. In the center of the room stands a massive pair of golden scales. The god Anubis leads the spirit to the scale. On one side, he places the person's heart. On the other side, he places a single, white ostrich feather. This is the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic balance. This is the moment of ultimate stillness. In the Egyptian mind, the weight of a soul wasn't measured in achievements or wealth. It was measured in lightness. Had you caused tears? Had you stolen the water from a neighbor's canal? Or had you given bread to the hungry and clothes to the naked? The god Thoth stands nearby, his reed pen ready to record the result. If the heart is heavy with regret and malice, it sinks. But if you have lived a life in harmony with the world, the heart and the feather balance perfectly. They are equal. There is a profound peace in this thought. The universe doesn't ask you to be perfect. It only asks you to be true of voice. It asks you to maintain the balance. Can you feel your own heart now? Let it go light. Let the heaviness of the day's frustrations drop away. Imagine your heart is as light as that white ostrich feather drifting on a gentle breeze. You have passed the test. You are justified. The gates open, and the spirit steps out into Sekitaru, the field of reeds. The first thing you notice is the air. It is not the dry, dusty air of the desert, but a sweet, cool breeze that smells of honey and blooming clover. Before you lies a landscape that looks exactly like the Nile Delta at its most beautiful moment. The stalks of barley grow higher than a man's head, and they are always heavy with grain. The vines are dripping with purple grapes. The canals are filled with clear, blue water where the lotus never wilts. In the distance, you see people you haven't seen in years. Your ancestors, your friends, all dressed in clean, white linen, laughing as they sit under the shade of sycamore trees. There is no more hunger, no more exhaustion. Even the work is a joy, for in the field of reeds, you only do the things that bring your soul delight. The sun here never burns. It only glows with a soft, golden warmth. The moon here is a silver lamp that guides you to a rest that is deep and sweet. The Egyptians believed that this paradise was not some distant, alien heaven. It was right here, just on the other side of the veil. It was the reward for a life lived well. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine you are walking through those reeds. Feel the soft leaves brushing against your hands. Hear the distant sound of a flute playing a song of welcome. The journey is over. You have arrived. Our fire has finished its work tonight. The red glow is fading into a soft, velvet gray. The stars of the Egyptian night, the same stars that Khufu watched and the scribes recorded, are high above us now. They are the imperishable ones, and they are watching over you. The Nile continues its long, slow journey to the sea. The pyramids stand silent in the moonlight. And you, like the ancient people of Kemet, are safe in the cycle of the night. Your eyes are heavy. Your mind is quiet. The stories have all been told, and they have settled into your spirit like silt at the bottom of the river. There is nothing left to do but let go. The desert is still. The fire is at rest, and you are at peace. Sleep now. Sleep. Good night.